Faggoting is a stitching technique to make open seams like this. And I have another example here. This type of sewing used to be done by hand, but now we can accomplish it quickly by machine. I recently tried out faggoting for the first time, and I have some tips for setting up your machine for success. First, you're going to need an appropriate spacer, and that's a narrow object that will keep the pieces of fabric an even distance apart as you stitch. So I found these cocktail stirrers at the grocery store, and they worked fantastic. They were very inexpensive, and as you can see, you get a ton of them. So what made these a good choice is that they were the appropriate width. They're about 4 to 5 millimeters across, and they are square. You notice when I turn that, you can see that it has 4 flat sides to it. And when I affix this to my sewing machine, it lies nice and flat against the bed of the machine. Something else that I found really handy to use was an open toe embroidery foot. So you can see the toe of the foot is open, and that allowed me to very clearly see the faggoting stitches as I was making them, and I was able to monitor that they were hitting both pieces of fabric. So with those two tools, I'm ready to set up my machine. So take your spacer and snap it down to about a 3-inch length. That's all you're really going to need. And I take a small piece of tape and I'm going to place it about 3/4 of an inch from the end. And you can smooth it on 2 sides. And fold that tape back, and now I'm going to come in closer and tape it to the machine bed. So you want to align the spacer between the feed dogs and place it flat on the machine, get it lined up there, put down one side of the tape and smooth it in place, and then I kind of turn back the spacer, press down some more tape, and then affix it to the machine. Now in this case, I'm working with a top-loading bobbin, which is nice because if I put the tape just on the bobbin door, I can easily change the bobbin because I can just remove everything here. Change the bobbin and then continue faggoting. But so that was not absolutely perfect, but that's pretty good. That's gonna work, and that's how you put the spacer on. And you can see I ran the spacer up right between the toes of the open toe embroidery foot, so I'll be able to see exactly where I'm stitching. And now I'm going to change the angle a little bit and we're going to start stitching. Work with 2 pieces of fabric, one on either side of the spacer. The pieces should have a finished edge or a fold like these for the stitches to sink into. Align the fabric pieces on either side of the spacer. Lower the presser foot, and you want to have your machine set to a stitch that is 5 millimeters to 7 millimeters wide. Many different utility stitches work beautifully for machine faggoting, and you really kind of have to experiment to see what you prefer for your project. Now you're going to go slowly and use both hands to guide the fabric pieces. You don't want them to smush up against the spacer or somehow drift away from it. And I'm looking to make sure that the needle is passing through each piece of fabric. I want the stitches to hit both pieces of fabric. This is just a small sample, and I want to encourage you to always make stitching samples when you're doing an embellishment technique like this. You really need to see how it works with all the factors in play. The fabric that you're going to use, the thread that you're going to use, the stitch that you're going to use. Just make sure everything works together by doing a sample first. Okay, I've got a couple inches of stitching, so I'm going to stop and remove the work and see what we've got. Just a second. Okay, so these were the results, and I quite like this. There are no skip stitches. The stitches have sunk into either side, each piece, so this is a pretty good example. I really love machine faggoting. I'm so glad that I got to work on a story about it and get to practice it and understand it better. I think it's really a lovely technique. And I encourage you to try it. It's very creative and you get to do a lot of experimentation. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned something from this video and see you soon.